Well, now I have to take notes, thanks.
It is 7:10 on Monday. 5:10, sorry. 5:10 on Monday, April 22nd. Meeting with the Capital Committee, the Finance Committee, a new interim town administrator. Old interim. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you guys, and as you know, I've got, I think, maybe 40 hours experience on the job. And I did get the budget to you,
Yep.
Which was a good find, and I've shared it with the town accountant, with others.
Okay.
I'm still digesting it, so I don't know a whole lot, but your questions will help me. So I've been doing this for 42 years. I retired, and then I'm kind of dumb because I'm still doing this, and my wife reminds me of that. But I do want to help you. I know this is a tough time of year. It's the town meeting and all that kind of stuff, and I respect you guys are all volunteers, and you're expected to do certain things. So and I'm here to help you. So I'll do the best I can, but I can't even present anything this evening. I mean, I'm working on trying to sense where that document is, and I'm actually going through the budget requests that were submitted, comparing them to what's in that document.
Right.
And then I'll share what I find, and then I can work with
Yeah.
either chair and that kind of
That's what I
thing.
was going to say, is that we have very different numbers than what you have.
Okay.
We have gone out and requested the latest budgets from everyone
Okay.
about a month ago, maybe a little bit less. So we had our initial 2% that we have been reviewing everybody's budgets, and then we also had real needs budgets that came through. So with that, we had one set that we got originally when we met with all the department heads, but then as we've gone on and we reached out within the last month again, because we had heard some rumblings of changes out there, that now people are submitting real needs that are just really very high.
Yeah.
Even compared to years past that I've been here. This is my 5th year, and now people are, and I don't know why, but they're asking for the moon. They can't get it.
Well, everybody asks for the moon, in every town I've ever worked in, I mean,
Right.
but.
I mean, it's commonplace. And
But that's, so I made a note, because we need to find common ground in terms of what the requests are. Now, my understanding coming into this is that it was supposed to be a 2% budget.
Mhm.
That's why I'm going through everything. So first, I'm verifying that our numbers are there, then I want to make sure they're 2, and where they're not 2, I'll work with you to make sure that we have the same information, because that's a
Yep,
problem.
ending budgets, yeah.
Of course, all of us do things differently, and
Mhm.
George was an accountant. I mean, that budget has got a lot of stuff in it.
Right.
And as a manager, that what I've done for 40-something years, I probably have half that detail because it's not necessary.
Mhm.
Now, maybe more is necessary for the finance committee or the capital budget committee,
Yeah, well, I
but,
mean, we're looking at the individual line items that make up
yeah, I mean,
categories.
you know,
You
I-
don't need to, you're looking at,
no, as a manager, in fact, I've worked in different towns. The first town I came to in Massachusetts was Northborough. They gave 3 numbers at town meeting: a school number, a regional school number, and a town number. And that was it. And then, I made a budget presentation as the manager, and in other towns, they go kind of line by line, but not to the same detail. They would go salaries and expenses for each department. So
Right.
you got a lot of information. The school budget's loaded with information. I
Right.
mean, most schools do not want to put that out, what you have here, so there's a lot out there, and,
yeah.
but I think sometimes too much information can be more confusing than it could be helpful.
Mhm.
I mean, so that's why, again, the budget presentation talks about comparative years and communities and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But we need to start on common ground, and I'll work with you to make
Okay.
sure, because I understood it to be a 2%. Since I've been here, I know the DPW resubmitted something, so any changes, we should be able to justify.
Agreed.
And I know, I don't even know officially what the school number is, but I think it's 2
It's a
point.
2.75.
So that, I heard that, and I've heard, I think the superintendents mentioned that to me. And there was one other change, I saw another change.
Police,
fire.
fire.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's normal, but normally if somebody's here, we're communicating with you, so that's what makes
Right.
this a little complicated when there isn't any continuity and stuff.
When we have talked to we're the liaisons with our departments, we have not guaranteed or confirmed, we've just confirmed receipt of their number. Originally, as I mentioned, their real needs came up with one number, and now, all of a sudden, they want more than that.
See, maybe the way you guys did it is innovative, you gave a chance for everybody to do everything, but I try to separate that process because it gets confusing, because I always want people to ask for what they really want and know that they can have, because the public deserves to know those things, and the selectmen and others make the decision. But you guys kind of married it a little bit, and I could see how it gets confused, so you're submitting two budgets. It's easier if you submit one.
Yeah.
Or you
Well-
separate the processes so that they're not going to be melded, and maybe they weren't. That's just the perception I have by looking at it.
Yeah, it's a perception because they definitely are separate. We definitely took the 2%, and then we did ask for real needs after that. And then what we would do is compare and say, okay, here's where they are, here's where they want to be, would have a difference. And then we would pull together the numbers from the cherry sheets and everything to see what we had for money. Then we would go back through and look to see where we were at, to see if we could, what we could give everybody and go from there.
Is there any definition to that greater budget than 2%? 2%, that's defined as...
Yeah, I mean, we started at 2%, and really, that's just a starting point. Because we feel like in the world right now, 2%, isn't there. And certainly with salaries in this town, it doesn't really get you anything, because salaries here are, the town is growing at 2.7%. So really, what does a 2% get you? But we feel we need to start there and adjust, and then after that comes through, you start, and then we would, like I said, we would take the money and then apply it back.
You can't just apply a number, it's not fair.
Right.
And if you know, I apologize, I should, my name is Rocco Longo, I haven't met everybody around the table, so.
We can certainly do
So
that.
this is really me, and I did do this as an interim. I'll be here, the contract says 6 months, and I hope it's not that long, but, and not because this is a great town, I'm really impressed. I never crossed the corporate borders until I came to here to work for the 4 states, really nice. I knew a lot about it because I worked with John Clifford, I knew him when he was the town administrator here in the
okay, yeah.
80s. And
Yeah,
that
in the
means I'm
80s.
old and he's getting close to me, so. So I retired after 42 years. I worked in different towns, and I've seen all different presentations. And all of us in my peer group do things a little differently. And some are more oriented to budgets, and some are more oriented to people and management.
Right.
Some have a blend, and all of us are a little bit different. So, and I've worked in different towns, but I look forward to working with you guys. I do, and I appreciate your patience with me. I mean, I was happy,
Absolutely.
and I'm a pretty open person. I want everybody to see everything. That's the way I've done things in my career. And I'm not talking about anything in the past, I'm trying to go forward, and that's, so I know my role for the selectmen is to get the budget balanced and to work with you guys, and, hopefully, at some point, it's nice when everybody's on the same page. Sometimes people want wars at town meeting, not me. They'll, I'd rather if we can all walk the same step, it makes it a little easier. I know
would
it's not
prefer not
easy.
to.
You prefer not to have it all together?
No,
Really?
I don't want wars.
Oh, no, I'm with you, I'm with
Yeah.
you. But I mean, in some towns you work in, and they think when we're all in agreement, they think that's not a good thing. Well, the reality is people don't understand, most of the work is done long before town meeting.
Right.
I start the budget process in every town I've worked in October, September.
Absolutely,
I want, and it's like an 8-month
That's when we
process.
started meeting.
Really? Yeah,
September.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't envy you guys, you're volunteers, so that's why I'll do as much as I can to help you, because I recognize the commitment you make to the town, so, and I can make it a lot easier, and I take your input. I technically work for the board, I've got to take their guidance in the direction they give me, but I think they probably want the same things too, because if we can make town meeting easier, that's ultimately the goal. So if people understand the process, having met all those times, it's nice when we're all walking together, and we don't need
Right.
to be
Agreed.
and then ultimately, you don't always agree on everything, but there's always a way to negotiate to some point that's acceptable to both, so. But in terms of the budgets, the needs budget is just kind of whatever you need, and so the administrator and the selectmen, and you all allowed everybody to put whatever the chief said I needed 10 more policemen, or 5 more firemen, or 20 more teachers, you said give us all that stuff, okay. But that didn't come into play in terms of what I mean, the 2% is a little more reasonable, and I'm grateful that you said 2% is, you can't just apply it, because sometimes some departments are hit by increases that would consume 3%.
Right.
And you're saying to them, you want their budget to be cut.
Right.
So, and that's
Well, I
the
think-
challenge.
Right, it definitely is a challenge, I guess, but with that, we're not saying cuts, but we are saying take a good, hard look at your budget.
Yeah. Well, you're no different than any other town. I mean, like I
Exactly.
said, if I never worked in a town where I said, come on, give me some more requests, because we got a lot of revenue.
Right.
You won't find that, it's
Yeah.
no different here.
Right,
So, but I think The disadvantage I have too is I don't know the culture and stuff, but I can put numbers together and, I can make any budget balance. But you have to know the culture, and you have to know, I have to take some direction from the board and from you and from everybody else, and we'll get there. But the longer you do it, sometimes, not necessarily, the more you do it, and once you sense that, kind of like where you guys are, you kind of knew where people should be bringing their budgets in, so we'll get there. The 20th is the date I think is going to be the joint meeting, if you want to mark your calendars for that. I met with John and the chairman of the board, and we started, they're helping me get some of your deadlines together. So that
Okay.
would be the date we'd have a joint meeting. I hope at that point I can make a brief presentation, by then. And by then too, when I make a presentation, whatever I present wouldn't be a surprise to you
Right.
guys.
Yep.
So, and I know you do things differently here. I understood that because you do all the work up front at town meeting, there isn't a presentation. But I want to maybe throw some things out there, and maybe they won't go this time, but I think sometimes, how many people come to the meeting that you have when there's a joint meeting? Probably not many. Do citizens come?
Do you mean the town?
Yeah, town residents.
They probably barely have a quorum. I would say maybe 175.
Well, that's
At most,
a
depending.
town meeting, but what about the
Oh.
joint meeting, like the meeting we have on the 20th, and I'm going to talk to
You mean the
board about
joint meeting with
Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
moderator, all that?
Yeah.
15, 20?
So my point is,
Yeah, I would say.
my point is, at the town meeting, that's the legislative body.
Right.
They should have a little bit more information, because you can't walk into a town meeting and vote on a $40 million expenditure
Right.
without a little bit of a background. And I know, probably like a lot of my colleagues, the presentations could be too long.
Usually the department heads will go, and then the two committees cap and,
But I'm gonna, if the board approves, I'm gonna ask if the superintendent and I can do less than maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes each, just to give kind of an overview of what the common ground is for the budgets, and that might help the people at town meeting. Now, maybe you guys are lucky here, too. Your town meeting might last a
No.
night or two. Well, in the towns that I've worked in, the last town I worked in, town meeting went 5 or 6 nights.
really?
And they went through line by line, and you know
I
what
guess
it.
I feel lucky.
Yeah, no, I can help you in terms of that kind of stuff. But
That's no good.
Again, we're looking to be as professional as we can, to share as
Yeah.
much as we can. And if I do some things differently, it's just a matter, maybe it might help you. I could screw up, and you can say, we'll never do that again, and that'll help the next
A
administrator.
little trial and
Or you'll
error.
say it's a good idea, and maybe we should continue that course, because like I said, your budget has a lot in it.
Well, we don't go over the whole budget, like at the town meeting. We just go over the totals and vote on the totals. It's just that everything's there in the book.
Okay, but do you go over the totals by general government, public safety, public works, or do you go
Yes.
line, you don't go line by line?
No.
The moderator doesn't read a line,
No,
okay.
no.
Yeah, that's why, so like in Marshall, like I said, they go line by line, and if one hand comes up, if there's 400 people, we go back and cover it all.
Yeah, no, we just vote on totals,
Okay.
because technically the budget's balanced. So we just are voting on the totals. So-
Okay, well, that should.
But it's all there for the town to see.
Well, you want to be as transparent as possible, so,
Right.
so that's, and so I'm gonna use whatever you have, and I'm just gonna try to carry that forward.
Yeah.
But it does have a lot of information, like account numbers. I don't know if they're of any value to anybody other than the town accountant.
No, I think they were just put in there as a,
Well, it's easier for the
Because it's in line,
staff,
right, the
it's
staff,
easier for
so
the
they can
staff,
see it.
but
go through and review
Yeah.
and such.
that's a minor thing. So the first thing I hear you saying, we've got to make sure we have common ground on the budget requests to make sure, and you have differences. Now, so you and I can communicate, and if you
Okay.
can share with me what you're finding.
Sure.
Maybe as I go through it, I'll say, this is what I found, and
Okay.
then, we'll do, so maybe my goal will be, I'll be here tomorrow, maybe my goal will be to get through general government and try to see where we are with that, and then I'll hit the next.
So we should, I guess, even just make sure our original 2% or the original budget that everyone sent in matches.
Well, that's what I'm gonna do. That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna look at is the 2%
Okay.
requests based on, I'm using the budget that I sent you, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna see if those numbers are the same.
Okay.
But so far in general government, they seem to be the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure unless you recently, within the, say, last week, got a fire department and police department and DPW. I know Laura
So I didn't get to
Sebastian's-
those three.
okay.
I didn't get to those three.
So Laura Sebastian's been working with the DPW on finalizing
Yeah.
their request due to overage on the, what was it?
Solid
the
waste.
Solid waste. We've had some issues with the overage is due to folks not signing up as much as they had originally.
And even though
Higher
I'm only doing this interim work, I mean, I've been following local, and I know solid waste is an area, a lot of communities. When
Right.
the Chinese stopped accepting the recycling, it really
Exactly, and
caused a big
that's-
problem.
That's where we're at,
So-
basically.
And there might be other issues, and I know you guys well, I understand too that you had projected revenues that you weren't able to meet because the solid waste, you expected to get 1,000 customers and you got 800. There's many
We
factors.
thought people would, the projection was that more people would come back to the town program.
Yeah. And usually the town, in my opinion, is always providing a better service than the private sector for the most part. Not every time, but for the most part. But I also know that, businesses can come in by lowballing a bit and then making up
Increase
for it
over the
later. So
years.
it's, it's not an easy decision to make and stuff, but I'll work with the DPW director, John. I spent some time with him already, and I know a little bit about the issue, but that'll be complicated because, and you guys aren't pay-as-you-throw, or are you pay-as-you-throw?
No, we're not pay-as-you-throw. They pay, I believe it's $150 a year. No, it's $300 now in
300.
total. It's $300, and that includes both recycle and weekly trash pickup, every other week recycle pickup.
Yeah, see, every town's a little bit different, but I know, but I saw when I live in the Luxbury, and when we went to pay-as-you-throw, and recycling was free, there was a lot more tonnage, but there was a lot more recycling.
Because there was
too.
that incentive,
Yes,
and
yes.
now with the rates and such.
But when the Chinese didn't want, the quality of our recycling is poor, so, in fact, there was a really neat
The
thing.
pizza boxes.
Well, the pizza boxes, yeah, that's what I loaded the community up on myself. But when, the problem with China is that we were single stream recycling, and what happens is that people take advantage of it. There was a good episode of 60 Minutes, if anybody saw it, on how people are putting a lot more into the recycling than they should be, and
Right.
that's why the
Things
quality
that
went
just
down.
shouldn't be there, or not cleaned, rinsed out.
And in the old days, I mean, when you put cardboard in the cardboard pile, paper in a paper pile, even with that, people don't understand why you can't put Christmas paper with other paper because of the stuff that's added to that. But anyway,
Grade.
I'm sorry for going off on a tangent,
It's okay.
but those are three budgets that I know are different, so hopefully we can get through the general fund budget, and we won't find too many differences, but those three are the ones that I'm aware of.
Okay,
And I did get something from the fire chief, I got something from John,
okay,
and I got something from the police chief, I think, too, so.
Okay. excellent.
I've got a lot of work to do, and there's not a
Yeah,
whole lot
and
of time.
if
I'll
you
do my
have any
best.
questions on police or fire and need to talk about their budget, where Laura and I actually are the liaisons with both Tim and Scott, so we're pretty well versed. And really their big thing is dispatch, centralizing dispatch.
Yeah, that's
That's what's causing both of them to really be over.
I told the chiefs, I think that's a great thing, it's a start.
Yeah.
Any change creates high anxiety, but if the police chief and fire chief can work together, that change
Yeah.
could be contagious, and maybe people
It's a
will
great
open up a little
idea.
bit.
Oh, yeah,
It is.
no doubt, it's a great idea.
It's a
It's just
great
an expensive
idea.
idea at the
Just
moment.
expensive.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it has gotten more expensive as we've gone on in this.
it's not gonna get any cheaper, but I think if you can combine them, and if you look at a 10-year projection, you can end up saving money.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to do, is really do a 10-year projection. We didn't ask for that, but I think that would probably be a good idea to be able to show that.
I think, too, the other thing is an option, if you can make that little change, the next change might be looking on it on a regional basis, and the state is giving lots of money to towns that consolidate dispatch.
Yeah.
That's a significant cultural change, because
Right.
everybody thinks, I live in East Bridgewater, if the dispatcher's in Halifax, they won't know where Jocelyn Street is. Well, if you think about it, and when I've been in the business long enough to say, the state of Texas has, I think, 25 call centers.
Wow.
And and we have 300 probably in Massachusetts. You probably don't need 300.
No.
So they can make it work, but it's a cultural
Agreed.
change. And police chiefs and fire chiefs, if they work together and are willing to explore it, so that's a great thing about here, is they seem to be willing to work together, and that's a good step.
Yeah.
And it might lead you to the next step.
They both have talked about regionalizing and what that would look like, and
I've actually explored it.
Yeah, they've definitely had conversations with all the surrounding towns. I think there was some location challenges, and then there was a couple other items that they had when discussing it. So I'm definitely sure they'll be more willing to talk about that at any point.
So there's good examples in the state too. The Hingham, there's a group up in Hingham and Cohasset.
And Holbrook, I think, too.
In fact, I did an interim job in Shirley right after I retired, and they combined two towns, but it is a cultural thing, but it works. It works.
Yeah, they're both willing to jump on and do whatever, to regionalize or what have you.
Well, and you
So-
also, the other benefit is that if you're paying a police officer, he's probably gonna help the community more if he's outside in the
Exactly,
street.
and that's the
same
whole
thing with the
point.
firemen.
Especially with the firemen, because right now the firemen's sitting there. We actually, on the police side, have 3 dispatches.
Civilian.
Dispatchers right there, civilian dispatchers that have been trained. But on the fire side, they have, and that's the challenge, they have one person doing it for the fire. Unfortunately, though, that takes a body away from, being out and available. And an issue that they're coming is that they've been down a person for now almost a whole year because of timing, because of training, because of a resignation, and then this, so they've really been short of body. So that's,
And plus, I'm sure you're aware too, you gotta negotiate all of that too.
You do.
So that makes it a little more complicated.
Right.
But usually by then, I think the chiefs have a pulse of their operations, so it's, if they're starting to talk about it, hopefully everybody will jump on board.
Yeah.
If it's best for the town, and,
yeah, I
It'll
think it's
happen.
just, we'll have to figure out the cost in that.
yeah, well, you
and how we
you
can
do need to know
get
the
there.
cost.
That's why their budgets are quite high right now. Do we want to take a quick break and just have everybody introduce themselves?
Well, it helped me, but then
Okay.
as long as you don't, grade me on forgetting your name
No.
or something, I'll do my best.
All right, do you want me to start? I'm Michelle Hearn, head of the Finance Committee.
And Finance Committee, and new member first year.
Crystal Hudson on the Finance Committee.
And Laura Sebastian, Finance Committee.
David Foley, Marymount Capital.
I haven't seen you in a long time,
Yeah.
since downstairs.
Tim Kramer, Capital.
Yep.
Glenn
Former
Tatry,
finance.
Capital.
Oh, Glenn Tatry, are you the chair? Are you still the chair? Okay.
Dan Pica, Finance Committee, and Finance Liaison to Capital.
So you have the capital budget is, they deal with the capital budget, the capital committee, and then the FinCom deals with the operating budget.
Mhm.
Right. But you don't do a capital budget here, do you? You do them by articles.
Right.
Right.
That's the
And
kind of,
we do work closely together in the sense that we know what projects they're gonna be doing, and
it's good. Again, I like when towns have a capital budget and an operating budget, and I'll share some thoughts, and not saying what you did is right or wrong, it's just another idea, but I
Yep.
like when there's a capital budget, and actually in the towns I've worked in, typically you have an operating budget would be one article, the capital budget's another article. You both work together, you know what revenues are available. Typically for the capital budget, it's the one-time revenues like free cash or borrowing and that kind of thing. You try not to use free cash in the operating budget, because it helps your
Correct.
bond rating, so, I won't be bringing them up.
yes, exactly.
You want to keep
Thank
a
you.
good bond rating. That's really
appreciate
critical. Well, that's that could be, not
I have-
millions, but lots of money,
Yes,
so. But that, so part of what I'll do too as an interim too, I'll just share my experience and I'll leave it with appropriate people, the selectmen, and either, they either look at it or at least, you could say it's a good idea or a bad idea and throw it out, but I'll try to do some
liking
of
what
that
I'm hearing,
stuff.
Rocco.
Well, I've done it 42 years, so it's not like this is new. And I think, for the most part, there's really not a whole lot of difference, especially in this process. There's not enough revenue. It's a matter of keeping peace amongst everybody. To me, the way to do that is by good communications, by everybody, connected. And the tough part about this job is you make decisions and you're not going to make, there's always somebody that likes what you decided and somebody that doesn't. So you survive by keeping the people who don't like your decisions at least understand you did the best and fairest thing you could possibly do. So, because this is a tough process so you got some advantages here and there's some disadvantages as well. But I think to me, the town is everybody, including the schools. I know they spend the most
It's
money,
everybody.
but it is everybody. They're part of it.
Agreed.
And I always remind people that people will move to the town because there's a good school system. They don't usually move if there's a good administrator or a good police chief or DPW director. So when you work together, we both can live off of that advantage of having people come to your town because you got a good school system
Right.
You need both good schools and good police and public safety and public works and everybody else, so.
Yep, agreed.
Do you guys have questions that I can help you with in what you looked at in the budget so far? I mean,
You know what, I was gonna ask, I left my notes, at work. So the solar, do you have it, that document?
oh, yeah.
So we wanted to just ask, that we had some questions in looking at the selectmen's budget, and I was gonna I sent you an email on those, and I'm just not sure if you've had a chance to get to them. And I believe one of them was on the solar, just looking for more, info on that, and then where the IT director's salary went to, because it wasn't on the line item. Oh, yes, Phyllis, I should have come.
If Bronco would like me to, I can
Please,
answer.
please. I'm sweating here, not from the heat.
We were going to hire a share
Yeah.
an IT director, which we have.
Right,
And what happened was he is paid to the town of Hanson. We pay half his salary and
so you
half of
moved
his.
it.
So it's down in a professional services, which I will transfer when we have a joint municipal transfer meeting.
Yeah,
I will transfer that money down into that. So it's half of his benefits and half of his salary.
okay.
For,
makes sense.
what, 7 months, something
Mhm.
like that. So that's where that disappeared to.
Okay, yeah, because
So-
we were thinking, we knew that we had split it, but we just weren't sure.
Right, because it's not a salary. He didn't come with
Okay.
us. He made the contract with Hanson.
But we had input,
So
right?
he's actually,
That was-
yes, they did, we have a contract with Hanson
Okay,
for his services,
Okay.
and they actually employ him.
oh, great, all right.
Their benefit package was better, as I recall, I think the health insurance and stuff, so he just,
Yeah,
that's
we
why
we
he
have a
wanted it with
GIC,
them
that-
and-
I don't know
Yeah,
if
we
they
did the
do.
GIC stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it was just on solar, was
Yeah.
that,
Well,
Just a
they say,
general-
you know, they asked me this down at the school also last week, and like I said to them,
they asked you about,
the solar
town?
program.
Oh,
And the easiest thing is just to change it to say townwide electricity.
okay,
Because originally, when we opened that account, everybody's electricity was in their accounts.
right,
And it was just the 5 solar accounts that we had with Solar City, if you remember that contract.
right. But then we did the
So-
pilot program too,
No,
right?
that's got nothing to do with it.
That's
The pilot program is part of your tax levy.
Right, payment in
Be-
lieu of
Per the
taxes. Yeah.
DOR, they made us do that, so that's part of your tax levy.
Okay,
So what happened was we actually took everybody's electricity out and put it into those accounts. Now, we also have another solar account, and what I have to do is I have to pay 100% of our electric bills for the entire town.
right,
So I have to pay the credits I pay to Solar City or Solton. I pay part of those credits to the town. I actually have to cut a check to the town of East Bridgewater. It comes in as local receipts for next year, because that's revenue for this year.
okay,
And then the balance goes to National Grid. So I actually cut 4 checks out of that per account, or some of them we combine, but I have to pay all of those, 100% of the electric bills,
okay.
which is falling short again this
Well,
year.
that's what I was gonna say, so.
We entered into a new
Like
contract.
900,000.
I'm sorry?
So that was the line item that I think
That
we were
was like-
questioning, that was like 983,000 or
Okay.
something.
Yes,
that's
we actually entered into a new contract last year for, getting me beyond myself, we joined a solar consortium that goes out to bid for the best prices of electricity. So, we did finally sign another contract,
And
but
do you commit for a year, is that?
I think we've committed for 3, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a year or 3 years.
Okay.
Because we did one for gas also.
Mhm.
So we get the best prices we can, but the usage goes up. They're renting the schools more.
Yeah.
You know, everything goes up, of course, so that's a real hard one to, like I say, the contract is fairly new. When did we sign it, in October?
Okay.
So, That's
Okay.
what that is.
That makes sense. Is there anything else? I think there's something
Can I say something about the solar? That's probably the most complicated piece. The laws have gotten so complicated. The town accountant, Phyllis, is doing an outstanding job, because typically what happens, the town gets the bill and the staff pays it. She's doing a pretty in-depth analysis. I thought maybe at some point, towns need to identify those bills with an energy manager, because it's complicated, especially if you have the net metering credits and SRECs, and sometimes it gets, and the power company makes a lot of mistakes as well as the town. So sometimes it's really complicated. So if I were here long enough, I would try to help bring that, because it's really complicated and it's hard to understand for us that are dealing with it on a regular basis. I know that Phyllis told me you got a consultant that's helping, and we'll try to do something to make it a little less complicated, because it does appear like a big chunk of change is available and you're getting money back, but it all depends on uses at
But you're not,
at the
'cause it's
time.
going back in
That's
with the
right. I mean,
checks.
it's based on, so if you use a lot more electricity than it was when you were projecting it, and the rates are higher, and when you lock in rates, sometimes, with the consultants I've used, I've locked them in as short as 6 months, and I've locked them in for 3 years, depending on what's going on. And you pointed out the pilot too. Once that's done, you should all know in that pilot what the revenue will be from that pilot, going forward. You should have gotten a copy of it or something so you could see. But that's a fixed, done deal. And it does go to the levy, all of that money, because it is payment in lieu of taxes. And that's because of the advantages the solar companies were given to put in the arrays. But it should have generated, especially they're private, if I'm understanding it correctly, in East Bridgewater, and if they're private, that property tax should have gone up pretty decent, because they're making a profit on that. But at some point, I'll try to get to that and help you. I'll work with Phyllis and others and the consultant and try to make it so that it's a little bit clearer. And then Tesla, I mean, in talking to Phyllis, Tesla's had some issues, and now they're trying to fix it and stuff. So it's not like the old days, you got electric bill and you paid it. Now you got this
Right.
complexity with the layer of bureaucracy from the solar array. It's really tough to deal with. But I'll work with you, depending on the time. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
big one.
Phyllis, just a quick question. Is the line item that the IT director's salary moved into professional services, GDO, TMS?
No.
That's- okay,
That was a
then was my
service
question.
that they started to use and became too complicated, so they went to the People's GIS. All it was a service charge. That's all it was.
But we had,
GEOMTS is
Yeah.
just a service charge?
It was
We're
just a
not-
service charge for their services.
but last year, we only had $3,000 in the line
Right.
item. This year, they're budgeting 61,000.
Well, we've gone to People's GIS, so I'm not sure what those rates are. The rates are on per permit, I believe.
Okay, because that's what that question was,
Geotem-
was it the people? But it should be not that big of a switch.
No.
Depends on who's using it. It sounds like it's GIS support service, I think the building department or the.
It's
Yeah.
building
I know we have
department.
several
And they've got a
departments.
lot
Right.
more on there than they had
That's
with the
right.
GOTMS.
Remember,
So maybe
Pat-
it's coming out of some of the other
Pat-
departments. Yeah, okay, let's just double check the other budgets.
That was the new, permitting and such online. But 61 seems like a lot, but we'll have to just look at that with him.
I think they've stepped up who's using it,
Okay.
so.
I just want to make sure
To
that
be
that,
more
I mean, 3 to
efficient.
61 seems like quite a big jump. And I know he was trying to use a lot of SoftWrite, to do the permitting applications, things like that, right?
Software doesn't do that.
Not SoftWrite.
Not software. It would be Geotems. It was Geotems. It's
That's all confusing to me.
It is very confusing, but, and I've seen this happen in other towns too. Geotems did it first, and a lot of towns jumped on board. Is it called PeopleSoft or People's GIS? I mean, it's a lot more user-friendly. Again, ultimately, if you look at a longer window, it's probably a cost benefit to the town, because it making people more efficient. You don't need to add staff people, because now you could do
Right, you
things
can just
a
do
little
it.
easier. But I'll work with Phyllis and others, and we'll come up with why there's a big difference in it. It's probably because
I
they
know
stopped
we do.
using Geotems.
Yeah.
I think Paula is probably well-versed in that.
Yeah, and I know Franny was all for it when he was presenting to us as well.
Yeah, well, do you want me to see if he's in?
No. I'll talk to him.
I think that was
Was
it.
there anything else? It was just solar, though, was, I think, for the selectmen budget, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So you'll see the move on that IT salary to go into that line.
Okay.
Will be good if you guys just approve it.
Sure. Well,
I had to give Phyllis $10 to say that for me.
well, now that we have clarification.
All in favor? No, I'm only kidding, I'm only kidding.
Do we have any other
So I know you had
questions?
mentioned the schedule. So I think that's kind of one of our biggest concerns right now is the dates and the schedule of what needs to happen for when.
Right, because
I'm
we're still
backing-
on for June 2nd, 10th.
10, yeah, you panicked me. We can't
June
lose,
10th.
we can't lose 8
June
days.
10th.
Yeah, so May 20th is one of the keys, so that really, that'll direct me to try to get as much as I can, and I'll be communicating with you a whole lot, because that's gonna be here sooner than
Right.
we all think.
Mm.
But that's one of the dates. What other dates, that's,
Well,
so that,
we'll need to work backwards from that because we have to make sure that we have a balanced budget, all our decisions made, and then we take all our votes
Right.
for it
We
and have
vote
it
on
in
it to
enough
make sure.
time for it to be,
and that's how I work. You work backwards from that date. So
we
how
do.
much time do you need? Because you need to get meetings together and,
Right. So we need to vote on anything that has to do with budget, and then we need to vote on any
Any other
money
articles.
amounts that are in the warrant.
Well, there's the whole, I guess you do the capital budget by separate articles, so the
Right.
capital
Yeah,
budget,
and
we
then-
need to see those.
Capital, yep.
And so if I can get a draft warrant that's close enough, then town council will say it's okay to let it go. Knowing that it's draft, and I wouldn't want you to release it yet.
Right.
But that would help you then at least know what articles, and maybe you can knock some of them off, some of the articles off ahead of time, so
Yeah.
that you're not pressured the last minute. But I understand how it works, and I want to do my best to work with you. I mean, it's,
Right.
but it's going to be difficult, because that's not a big window. And I'm grateful that the town meeting's in June. I mean, I can't imagine, when is it normally? It would have been May.
Usually it's in,
May 18th.
well,
Last
the
year was May
bylaws
18th.
say it's in May,
Second Monday of May.
but we've pushed it out
I think
several years.
I think what'll happen is if I'm not mistaken, and working with John, and this has happened to me before, is what, you convene the meeting on the date that your bylaws require you to do it, and then you adjourn to a time certain.
Right, that's what your, that would be Board of Selectmen
Yeah,
that does that.
that's the board, that's
Yeah.
right, with the moderator.
Yeah.
And I was happy to hear that the attorney, John, said that you don't have to have a quorum at that meeting.
Oh, which
Because
is
if you
good.
had to have a quorum to adjourn a meeting, oh my
Eh,
goodness.
We barely get a quorum now.
Well, it's
So-
funny, you guys, again, I'll go off on a little tangent. The towns that I've worked in that had a 0 quorum always had more people than the towns with a quorum, always, because people don't trust us. So if it says there's no quorum, the people, we had, at Marshall, we always started the night off with 400 to 500 people, maybe more at a town meeting. By the third night, it would be, 100, the regulars.
Yeah,
But in the towns I've worked in Northborough, I remember starting there, they always were sending the police out or the fire department out to bring people in to get a quorum to start the meeting. So it's probably the same
we've
here.
had that happen.
I'm sorry?
We've had that
Of course,
happen, yeah.
of course. But anyway. So it will be adjourned. There will be a meeting called, and hopefully we'll get a chance to explain it, and maybe get something on cable TV so people don't rush down and expect to vote on anything.
Right.
It'll be the June 10th. But I got a feeling that word's out there.
Right.
Anything else?
I got a question.
Sure.
As you navigate a Silver Rocco for whatever it is, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, I know a few of us have talked over the years. Can you kind of give like a thumbnail of what the pros and cons of a strong manager versus a town administrator?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in this profession for 42 years. I'm a member of the International City Management Association. I belong to Mass Municipal Managers. I've been on MMA board, and I've actually been on a committee, we call it FOG, Form of Government, and I've been out there talking to towns to get a stronger manager. And to be honest with you, I think that's the way things are going, because it's, in the old days, town government was run completely by volunteers, and there's been a historic transition because of the litigious society, and people can't volunteer. I mean, you guys are not any different than any other town. They can't get members to come in and do what people are getting paid to do on a full-time basis. So there's a lot of advantages, in my opinion. Now, I'm very prejudiced. I've been a strong town manager. I was a weak town manager. I worked for a weak mayor. I've worked in different forms of government. The advantage is that the biggest advantage that maybe people might not understand, but if you hire a manager, a strong town manager and they belong to the International City Management Association, they subscribe to a code of ethics. So they do a job, and I can get you a copy of the code of ethics. To be honest with you, that's probably something I'm going to leave with the Board of Selectmen for the town to consider, because it seems to work better when there's a full-time professional here that can be accountable, that subscribes to code of ethics. And I could tell you, just from my experience, I've had more success working in a community where the position was stronger, because it really doesn't matter what it says on paper. It's the person doing the job and the skills that they have. Because I've seen people say that they're a strong town manager and get fired the next week. Because when you're a strong town manager, it's not necessary to talk about that. You still work for Board of Selectmen, and the code of ethics makes you responsible to them. And in fact, the history of this business is that you work for them, they get all the credit. And that's the way it is if you're in a profession. So I think when you have a professional manager, a town manager, there's a little bit more accountability. I think it makes it easier for everybody, because there's a code of ethics that guides them. And like in the corporate America, when you have a CEO, everything falls on that person's shoulder. So when you are totally decentralized, and in some towns where you have elected boards separately, who's going to be responsible? And I'll give you an example why it was a challenge for me in Marshall, because I was a weak town manager. They had an elected board of public works, they had an elected board of health, they had an elected board of assessors, elected planning board, and they had all these elected boards. So this is one example I'll share with you. And so things would come up where a disciplinary matter was necessary. And as a professional, I said, it's like with one of the boards I work with, we need to take some disciplinary action because of the liability. The board would say to me, and I had no authority, I was a weak administrator, had no authority, no hiring, firing, and the board would say to me, well, we get elected every year, he does a good job for us, we're not going to do the discipline. I don't want to get into the details, but it was significant enough that in most cases, most people would say, and most professionals would say, the person would need to be separated. So there's a liability issue with a manager that has the ethics behind him. You won't be exposed to that liability. So to me, the mission when I went to Marshall was to help them recognize the benefits as a strong manager. And I was getting zinged from all over the place. Oh, he just wants to be a strong town manager. Well, I read the charter. I wasn't strong. But I left there. They did create a charter commission. And to be honest with you, it only failed by about 4 or 5 votes. What happened is that the people, the regulars that didn't want a town manager came to the meeting, kind of filibustered. John Clifford can give you the story about that. Yeah. But there's an advantage. When you're weaker and you don't have control, I think again, if that worked, the corporate America would use that example of dividing the authority. But when you have one person that's responsible, like to the board, because even the CEOs have a board that they're answerable to, I think it makes it more effective. Plus, you don't have the volunteers. It changes a little bit. Well, even the town meeting form of government. I know this is not sacred to say, but I think it's probably. It might be 20 years or 30 years from now, but the rest of the country doesn't use a town meeting form of government. And Attleboro just recently changed to a town manager council, and you're going to see more towns doing that because people are going to get fed up with just a group of people coming to town meeting. And we're all part of one of those groups. I mean, I like the example when I was in Duxbury, we're building a senior center, and the town administrator sits in front. You look at the audience; it's all white hair. The next thing was a library. The library came up. The cloud left, and the people come in with families and stuff, and so you get what you want and you leave, and that's probably not a good way to govern. And there's probably a better way to articulate that, but I mean that's the way it is, and I think that's kind of what's intimated. So I would leave the selectmen with some thoughts about that. There's other professionals, and I could say that because I'm not going to be here. I mean, ethically, I wouldn't say that if I wanted to work here. You don't do that, but I would leave the board with contacts and people who come to talk to you all about the differences and people who can articulate better than I, but it is much better, I think, more effective, and there's more bang for your tax dollar when you have a professional that works for the board and works for the town and that can be held accountable. So if things don't work, like I said in Marshfield, if something ever came out of those suits where I needed to do a disciplinary thing, it wouldn't, somebody can be held accountable, and where in that case it couldn't be. So I don't know how clear I was with the answer, but I mean,
No,
I'm very.
very clear. And I know our charter doesn't.
You don't have a charter.
Yeah, we don't, right.
And that's a major weakness too. You don't have a charter. You don't know who knows what, and to be honest with you, I would say, probably for someone to be here as long as George was here, he probably functioned as a strong town administrator anyway. Because to be here that long, I mean, it wasn't like, he was an executive secretary. So when you don't have it defined, that's probably worse than having a charter that's not so great. It's better to have a charter and defining what the roles are, what everybody does, so people know what those duties are. And that's what their peers, or if I were coming to make a presentation about the strong town manager, that would be the first thing to look at, a charter. And there's many different paths to do that. Marshall, the selectmen chose a committee, because you can elect people to a charter commission. Sometimes that's a little scary, but you want to have people who understand organizational structure, so that they know, that there's, how the hierarchy should work. It shouldn't be really long. It should be very, very narrow. And I think across the country, there's only in New England is there a town meeting. The rest of the country have managers and council. And I know in my profession, we've done a really poor job at telling the world what we do, because if I say in my family, if I say I'm a town manager, they go, oh, you're like a mayor. Well, obviously, we didn't do a good job if they think we're like a mayor, because there's a big difference between a mayor and a town manager. And bigger cities and mayors work very well in some cases, but smaller towns, I think, having a professional is probably better, so.
Yeah, great, thank you.
But you need a charter. You do need a charter. That's when you don't have one, it's really complicated, and it'll change with the elections, and when there's a charter, it doesn't change. The charter is your constitution.
I think you hit it for me, was that even in corporate America, you have to have somebody at the top accountable. With all due deference to our selectmen and previous selectmen and from other towns, they're not really schooled in, administrating or, what's the word I'm looking for? Having department heads at $150,000 a year who focus in one aspect, and they may have no recollection at all. They're $250 a month. It's almost volunteer work.
No, it's volunteer work, but I'll add to that, the confusing part of it is, not any one selectman can do anything. They have to be a body, and they can't even talk to each other. Two selectmen, if they're in the grocery stores checking out the prices of orange, it'll be in the newspaper that they're doing something to violate the open meeting law. So it's not really the individuals necessarily, but it's the fact that, you can't run it with a team. I mean, some towns think it's better, they go from 3 to 5 selectmen, that doesn't do anything either. That's really,
That's the same.
it's the same thing, so that's what it comes down to. It's not real relative, because I know the selectmen, how hard they work. They're volunteers too. For $250, you might as well say it's volunteer, because they can't go anywhere. They're not recognized as a person anymore. They're recognized as a selectman. And sometimes long after they're selectmen, they're still a selectman. So what they have to do to take their responsibility is significant. But again, the professional management would make their life easier as well.
Sure.
I think.
Sure.
So I do talk too much, but,
Oh, that was great,
Yeah,
very
I do too,
helpful.
so I wouldn't
Yeah.
worry about it.
But so I do this because I have a passion for local government. I do want to help you guys. So, I'm going to spend as many hours as I can to get this together. I work very closely with you, Michelle. We'll get this figured out. And then on the other stuff, you want me to work with you on the capital? Okay, so I'll send you,
Yeah, we've already reviewed all the requests and voted on them.
that are in the warrant?
Yeah.
Did you've seen a copy of the warrant then?
Well, we had all the
We've got
requests.
numbers ahead,
The way it
right?
works is the capital gets all the requests from the department heads
Directly.
and we review them all. Our charter, our capital charter bylaws basically state that all the requests come to us, we look at them all, prioritize them, and then we move them forward to the town meeting.
Yeah.
So we kind of did that. We prioritized them all. We voted on them. With a little bit of guidance from the selectmen and from, what George had for numbers before he left. So we do have that.
I see that's so decentralized. So you're working independently with department heads, and you're working independently with department heads, and who then eventually, there could be communication issues, and then how do you address it? So if it's on one person's shoulders, because that's the hardest part of the town manager's job, is making sure everybody has the same information.
Right. Well,
Because
George
then the
was
best
the
result-
Right.
nucleus of that.
Which was the,
he was a puppet master,
good
so
word.
Yeah, well, that's, and I understand, that's why I said he might have acted like a stronger administrator.
Right.
But there's still
He
an
had
issue,
to.
there's an easier way to do it, and what's gonna happen someday if they can't get enough people on either committee? And your charter, not the charter, but your bylaw does say what you just said about how the things get submitted, then what are you gonna do? So somebody will pick it up and no good deed goes unpunished.
Right.
you know, so, but
What we
that's,
typically do is look at the requests and kind of prioritize them, and then we talk with George about to see how much money for free cash, how much we can bond. We have a stabilization fund, so he helps us with that, and he kind of gives us a little bit of direction, says, you know, we could probably spend 400 on small stuff and bond $1.5 million. So then we kind of go through our list and we pick off what we can afford for those dollars. That's kind of how we.
Which should also coincide with each department's 5-year plan.
Right.
see, that's important too, and I saw he had some forecasting, I don't know if he shared it, but it's important to have a 5-year plan. You can't always stick to it, especially for capital items, especially when you have storms like we
Right.
had in 2015 and some other things.
Right.
And if a fire truck goes down, you know,
Yeah.
you know, there's lots of things, but
Lot of
that
variables,
dialogue is helpful.
Right.
And it's still, you know, you can have a stronger town manager and still have these committees to provide guidance.
Right.
Because, I mean, some of that should come from you. What are the community's priorities? That's what I take from the board. I don't come into a town, any town. I'm from New Jersey, so I never, you know, all my career has been in Massachusetts or in West Virginia, but you don't come in with the answers. You try to help dig them out, and that's the way it should work. So there'd still be a lot of volunteers, but would be less dependent on the volunteers. You guys you do a great job. I mean, that's all the work that you've done, that's a lot, but both of the chairman, I'm sure, because that's how we have to work. Same thing with the administrator working with the Board of Selectmen. Typically, you spend a lot more time with the chair, because you can't deal with the three of them
Yep.
on every level, but you try to make sure the three selectmen know everything that's going on, period. Like you would do with your committee, because it would be tough for the manager
We
to
all
meet
work
with,
well together.
you don't?
No, I said we do, we work
Oh,
well
good,
together.
I know you have a sense of
We meet
humor.
a lot.
Well, so we'll get there, so I'll work with you, you guys, and if you need anything, you know, you just, I'm available, just 20, even though I'm working 20 to 32 hours a week, it's not a part-time job, and I'll work with the selectmen, you know, so I come in the building for the 20 to 32 hours, but I don't ever say, oh, I'm not on the clock.
Right. Okay. Sounds great.
Anything else?
Anybody
No.
else?
Well, thank you guys for your time, and I'll be communicating with you, and
I
I'm
know,
available
thanks
if
for
I can
meeting.
help you, and so, and I guess I'm gonna, I mean, I got some ideas tonight, and Phyllis has been a big help to me. I'm gonna meet
Phyllis
with,
knows all too.
I'm gonna meet with the fiscal team every week, so I like to be empowering, so I'll meet with the treasurer, the assessor, and the accountant every week. That'll help a little bit. But I know in the past, George took a lot of that burden on himself, and that's not the way I work. You know, I think it's a lot easier. The more eyes on everything, the better it is coming forward. I don't like to be surprised. I don't like to surprise anybody. But like I said, and all of us are different, so, and I'll certainly be different.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think that's all.
Am I dismissed? Well, I appreciate the time with you guys, and I'll work. But I want to get
Great.
ready for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Okay, see you guys.
I got my posse with me. That's, you guys are all leaving.
He just called us.
What's that?
Posse.
bodyguards.
Yeah, that's right. I need protection.
I went and changed a bunch of formulas and,
Okay, because I had reformed.
okay.
I didn't.
Let's not,
I just had.
let's not change it again, though, because I've already got a ton of work in it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so let's not
Okay,
change it
You
again.
could send it to me and I'll just look to make sure that we have the same.
okay, I just was wondering if the formulas, because some of them got
They were
corrupted.
wrong, yeah, I
Yeah.
went through it actually and I fixed all the formulas.
Keep yours separate and then.
Well, she fixed them,
formulas,
so,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you, folks.
Okay.
We adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
You don't want to talk calendar first? I think we need to talk schedule for, hey, you know, folks, we got a deadline here. We now have a date of when we have to have.
Do we still haven't got?
Okay, good luck with that.
I'd love to go home too, but
I spent a lot of years in the finance, so I know.
I do have to step away. We stay in at 6:30.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
no.
for your, that's all right.
So May 20th is a
So-
joint meeting, are we working?
May
Hear us.
20th, they're saying will be the joint meeting.
Bye.
Um,
So does that happen like at the selectmen's.
Yeah, in the selectmen's
The
office.
moderator.
I'm sorry,
account.
I'm just thinking of some other things, but.
May 20th.
So May 20th.
Yeah, May 20th is our date, yep, for
So-
the joint meeting.
We have to be completely wrapped up, voted on, documented, and everything prior to that.
Well, yeah, our budget has to be balanced before then, correct?
And we have to vote on all of the
Yeah, and what we're gonna take.
warrants.
So 3 weeks,
Well,
if that.
hopefully, he should have the warrants by
3, 4.
then. Wasn't sure with the way he was talking.
Yeah, we have to have them, because we have to vote on them prior to
Agreed,
that.
but, yeah, I'll get with him
If,
again.
and if we follow kind of similarly how it happened last year, we had a chunk of them one meeting, and then we had a chunk of them the
But that's
next
because there was
meeting too.
there was an error.
But I think there were a couple that
and
weren't
There was a couple of
finalized.
issues, so then we ended up pushing that back.
I did too.
Not to mention, we have to finish our, obviously have our relatives budget before then too.
Well, I think what we need to do is take, and you've been working when you took the DPW stuff into that document in the shared drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably about halfway through it, just checking numbers.
Okay.
So if I can finish I've kind of got like the small ones left to do, which
Yeah.
I think those should be fine, because I don't think the numbers are gonna be any different. I
Okay.
should be able to whip through that, and if, once that's good, then we can kind of look at that
Yep.
and use that at least as a guide.
And that's,
Then we need to
well,
talk
what we
revenue.
have to do is make sure that, or I'm not sure where you left off with that, are all of the budgets that we've received correct in there? Or did you only look at DPW?
Define correct, like, what we've,
Well, we
what
put 'em
we've
in,
uploaded
right,
is
yeah.
what we requested from everybody, so it's the most
No, in the
recent budget.
large document that I sent you.
That's what I just said I was doing. That's what I'm verifying and checking all the
I
numbers.
thought you were just doing DPW, my mistake.
No, I'm doing everybody.
Oh, okay, so you went through and looked at original budgets, or, because we got two, we get.
Only
and
what
some
we
of
just
them-
got for latest
Ones that
budgets.
Basically what we've uploaded to
Whatever
share
we,
file.
2 weeks ago, we asked for, everybody give us what your final
Correct.
was, and that's what we uploaded into that share file.
Correct. Now, have you seen a lot of differences other than DPW? Because the reason I'm asking is because Rocco's gonna need that,
Yeah,
because right now,
DPW, we knew,
he's only
police.
going under the assumption of his document.
Yeah, so once I finish this, and again, I'm highlighting just anything that's changed or different,
Yeah.
we can just ship it back to him.
Right, that's
He
what
can
I'm
see-
saying.
he can see the
We'll need to do
changes.
that, so he can
Yeah.
see the changes and make sure that he and we'll have to send the budgets along with them.
Or I can just give him access to this. And he can do it himself too.
Correct.
He can
I mean,
download them, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, DPW, fire,
yeah,
and I was just getting to police.
okay, because there I
So
know.
those are the three main ones
Those
that
are
we
the
know that have
three, yeah.
changes.
Well, you've hit, yeah, 3, and then I think, I don't know if we have the right Phyllis budget either for accountant
I have what she gave us
that night.
that night. I will look at that and see it, compare it.
Okay.
But
'cause-
you got it. She
Yeah,
uploaded it, so yes,
Oh,
it's in there
all
already.
right,
Yeah.
then it's in there, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So that's good from that standpoint. So then, once we do that, that's the 2%, we'll need to see where everything flushes out
We need
then.
to see- we
The
need to
problem is, we
revenue.
don't have revenue,
That's what we, yeah.
so I'm gonna talk to him about that tomorrow.
So we can't kill
Or
ourselves
tonight.
looking at expenses if we
Right.
don't have.
Exactly. It's
So I'll
all, it's
send-
all well and good to have an ending number.
Right.
So I'm gonna send,
You may not even realize that we don't have that. I don't know.
no, I bet you he doesn't, because he does know that I saw some of the warrant numbers, so I
Yeah.
think he assumed that I got like a big picture type of thing, and I did not. So I don't have any of the local receipts,
Right.
I don't have. What else? Any local receipts, I need tax levy and need cherry sheets, right? I keep getting notes on the cherry
Yeah,
sheets, but
the-
nothing's really,
There's, yeah,
just
I
it went to the
uploaded,
house, right?
um,
I'll tell you.
cherry sheet as of 4/16. The one that just came out last week.
Yeah, I got that.
Was just the, yeah, was just the House
Just
Ways
that it
and
went to
Means.
the house.
It's final for House,
Okay,
so,
so then that's
It-
just the governor, right?
no, Governor's first, House
Governor,
Ways and
then
Means second. It still has
Senate.
to go Senate and then, Conference Committee.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen usually till like right at the end.
Oh, yeah, we're not gonna get that.
Yeah,
We have to go by what we
Senate,
have now.
yeah.
We'll have to go by that.
So do they release it along the way, like we have where it stands after it's been through
Yeah, on the
the
DLS.
house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The website
Mhm.
there, but local receipts, you know,
Right.
and I wanna make sure that Melissa has no changes.
Right after
I'm
she's
just gonna
gone through.
double
Well,
check.
yeah, on her budget, because she gave us a paper one that night too.
Agreed, but I think there was, I just wanna make sure they haven't changed.
And I
Where
did
she's
get
new and
an
gone back
Excel
and looked
from
at,
her last week,
because
too.
afterwards, do you wanna confirm with her then? Just because I know she was going through more of Erica's spreadsheets after that night, and she
Yeah.
had found a bunch of stuff, and I think it was coming in lower, I don't know. I don't wanna say lower or higher at this point, but could you reach out to her and just ask her?
Yep.
If she- her
Open
budget's
in
still
the
final?
Excel that she sent the Excel to.
And then, I think we're good, right, from that?
Do you have hers handy, like you could tell me what you had for, I can
Only
just
'cause I
look
just
at it to the
organized it.
Excel she sent for now.
You're like, well, yes, thank you for asking.
Only because I
I'll
knocked the
reach
pile
out to
over
her
again.
too, but at least
I
I
finally
can.
got mad enough. What do you, treasurer, this is the one she handed us.
Oh, the handwritten one, not written, but
That's,
handout, yeah. Just didn't have all the detail behind it, she had just,
Right. The Excel she sent me is like $2,000 different than the formula. That number's the same. That's like a $2,000 change in the employment benefits on the Excel here.
Wasn't that,
From health insurance,
yes.
from 4,025,000 to 4,023,000. Oh, and it looks like she, oh no, that was already in there.
yeah, I have in my notes. That's like a 960.
there was $1,000 stipend that had to be removed from a line,
right, she was taking that 1,000 out.
What line was that?
510-5168.
Actually, can I just
Yeah.
do this for a second? It was this 1,000 right here
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
that's
TC
taken
stipend,
out
yeah,
too.
she was taking.
Yep, so that's
Let's make sure
taken
that
out here. Yep, that's out of the Excel.
Yep.
Definitely. So there's a couple.
Do you have a copy of that? Do you want me to scan it and send it to you?
No, because I have the Excel here.
Okay.
That's fine. I can, and I'll upload this.
Okay, yeah.
I just forgot about it last week.
Well, you were busy in tax season.
It's alright. We all got sick. 16 people in the office on one day.
No way.
Between, we all worked Saturday. Out of the people who worked Saturday, 16 of us between Sunday and Tuesday were sick.
Oh
We
my
don't know if
gosh.
it was the food that we all had,
Oh my
or
gosh, that's
that we
awful.
just spread a bug that quickly to each other.
Awful.
That was over the
It was
15th?
crazy. Yes, it was.
Oh, jeez.
We were all in the office the Saturday before Patriots Day, and then on Patriots Day, the 15th, of the people who were supposed to be in the office, like half of them were sick. And then as we started finding out, more people were sick that just weren't supposed to be in the office, so we didn't know, and it ended up being
That's
16
awful.
people out. I mean, our office in total is only 80 people. So
Oh
you
my
think
gosh, so you
that
had,
big of a
wow.
chunk that.
On that day.
That is no good.
Oh, that's it.
All right, so then you are gonna get answers on the library. I think that was our only open department, if I'm not mistaken, or,
Yeah.
okay.
And my discussion with them probably wasn't gonna really change much on the budget. It was more,
Agreed.
it was more theoretical. Let's think a little differently about how we do this.
Right.
I don't
I
think
mean,
we're
we
gonna-
don't agree with the way it's being done, but
Right.
if he can fit into his 2% budget, as we said, technically 2% is what it is, right? So, and our budget's, is it 2.03 or something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it was,
It's a little over, I think.
I don't know if I could find it. I could do it.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go home and gather documents.
It's filing another file.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where it is in this document yet. I've got the big worksheet open
Okay.
to find it.
Anyway,
Yeah, I don't think it was out of whack.
okay, it was more just going
Yeah.
back with, I guess, our philosophy of what we feel is kind of the best way to go. But in the end, that's up for them and the library trustees to decide their methodology and what they would like to do.
Oh, here's the library.
So, that being said,
Yeah, they were exactly 2%, so.
okay, so then, that being said, let's get back to our calendars.
Yep.
5/20 is the date. That leaves us, what, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'm assuming if we can get revenues, we definitely want to meet next week.
Yeah, so we need revenues.
I think we should probably plan to meet every Tuesday between now and then, and
Oh,
then if we
yeah.
can
Yeah,
cancel-
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's just plan on meeting.
Oh, absolutely,
every
and
Tuesday.
I'll just send out, meeting notifications for the next 3 Tuesdays until then. But we also need, info from Rocco,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he's working with Phyllis to get us that.
Does anyone have an issue on any of those Tuesdays where maybe we'd move it to Wednesday if anyone had a problem or anything?
I'm just gone the whole week of May 5th at a work conference.
So changing the day doesn't help you there.
So, there you go. Okay, so we have, today is Monday, April 22nd. I can't meet tomorrow night, neither can Laura.
We have very important prom business we have to take.
Prom
care of.
business.
Oh my goodness.
Mandatory meeting.
Yes, so Tuesday, April 30th.
And the other question is, on any of these dates, do we want to do maybe a little earlier?
I don't mind earlier.
Maybe just like a little earlier to
I'm
kind
all
of,
for anything before 7 o'clock.
yeah.
Do you want 6? Yeah,
Yeah.
I just
it
hate
doesn't
to
have be
go
early
earlier than that.
Yeah,
But
that's,
that helps us. A 3-hour meeting at 6 is a lot better than a 3-hour meeting
Yeah,
at
so-
I
7.
agree.
Okay.
Not saying we need to meet for 3 hours, but
No,
in case
but-
it were to happen.
So
that's-
4:30 at 6,
Putting it in our-
5, 7,
Putting these all
at
in our
6.
calendar
right?
as well.
Mhm.
5:14 at 6, and then I would ask that everyone keep Thursday, May 16th open in case, I won't post it now, but I'm thinking our meeting with the joint meeting is Monday, May 20th.
In case we needed an extra.
So I need to post for May 20th. And I believe that will be at 6, but I'll confirm.
And we still have Monday, May 6th, for the regional school.
Right.
oh, jeez.
Can
Oh, I
we-
forgot about that.
Can we,
Can we just do the
wanna do-
5, 6 as the one date to?
instead of the 7th, can we make that work somehow or no?
Liam has a track meet, so
Do we
It's
all
at
have to go
home.
to that?
no,
I didn't think so. Maybe one or two representatives.
right.
It's Crystal and I, if that, because we're the school, I think that would make sense if you,
Because I have a
if
track
that's
meet.
okay with you.
Yeah, so,
I
and
mean,
it's in East Bridgewater, so that's why I really would like to go.
So I'll still put the 7th as well. Or the regular.
Yeah.
6 o'clock on the 7th.
6 at the 7th.
So, and then we're gonna do a hold on Thursday, 5/16.
Don't you think we should, just in case? Because
Yes.
who knows what's coming at this point?
And again, just given the chaos of this interim scenario,
I'm
we could be,
putting it out there.
we could be scrambling to do last-minute votes on warrants.
Right. Just for lack of numbers getting it there, so we do that. And then I'm gonna have to post a meeting for the 20th if we're having a joint meeting, so I'll have to figure out time and location.
That was Thursday, the 16th.
Yes. I would put it there, because I can cancel, 24 hours ahead.
Yep, so this is all on the Team Up calendar.
Okay.
Everyone.
Fourteen, 5/16. 20, and then 5/6 is,
Okay, so I have April 30th at 6, April 6th for the regional school committee, April 7th, put in as the fun committee, but.
It is.
6th, and then the 14th as well at 6, and the joint meeting I have on the 20th. And I put a hold on the 16th.
okay.
And then we have a little break from May 20th to June 10th. It's a
Mhm.
social emotional break.
Yes, okay. So we're good, right?
Did we have a time for
Yep.
that regional
which one?
school? The regional
I just looked on the
I believe it's at
website, it's
6.
6, okay.
Yeah,
I
Yeah, because
had
it's,
that
it's at
in
the Board
here.
of Selectmen meeting.
Okay, I had that, but I wasn't sure if I had just like defaulted to that time.
Yep, and Southeastern's presenting that night.
June
So you only need to go to that part,
Sneak out after.
yeah.
They probably do the presentation. the
They do
presenters
it,
early.
yep. So it should be good.
What
Okay.
time does town meeting start?
Well, and that's-
Town meeting usually well, last year,
Special.
they're doing a
six.
special, which I think starts at 6.
6, I think.
And then the actual town meeting at 7, I think.
You have to post for that, too.
I don't know how that works. I'll double check that. I don't know if, because it's the annual town meeting, we have to post or not.
Oh, actually, it was 7. Last year, it was. special
7 and then
7,
8.
7:30.
Oh, 7 and 7:30.
That was earlier.
I did too.
I think 7.
You're wishing it was
I know.
Okay. All right. I think I'm good. You guys good?
I'm good.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Yay.